Today I wanted to talk about something very interesting that comes straight from A Course in Miracles, and that is the concept of the ego, but in specific, how the ego differs from righteousness, or what we consider godliness or virtue in a very spiritual sense, not just necessarily religious, but non-denominational, essentially. The concept of the ego is very interesting because in A Course in Miracles, the ego is essentially the antithesis of God or unconditional, unlimited, perfect love. I have done a video specifically kind of introducing the ego if you are hearing about it for the first time in the context of A Course in Miracles, which is the belief system, which I will be touching on today. If you haven't heard of the course or don't know what it's about, don't worry, I will break it down in such a way that I feel like you can still take something away from this video and hopefully apply its lesson to your everyday life and to help expand love in your world and in your environment, wherever that may be. But I find the concept of the ego from the course so incredibly interesting and inspiring, and so I wanted to share it with you today. I sneezed so loudly I felt my soul leave my body just now. Anyways, hello everyone. My name is Sama. Welcome to Mediocre Guidance. Also, it's like peak summertime here where I live, and it's freaking balls to the wall so hot. I look so oily. It's just because I'm chronically dehydrated and my body produces oil to compensate for my lack of water. And so I am just looking like the oil sands of Alberta, like just come here if you want to drill. Why go anywhere else? Just come visit me and mop me up. In major religions, the ego actually more so takes the form of evil, and especially if you want to think of God's arch nemesis, that would be Satan or the devil, if we were to translate that. So the concept of evil or of Satan and his minions and all that from other major religions and belief systems into A Course in Miracles, the ego would essentially, like Satan would be the epitome of the ego. I'm also going to give my personal take on this, and my first point is that I feel that we are so cynical of God's love, and if you call God spirit or source or the universe or creator, it's all good. But I feel that whether you come from a religious background or not, the whole concept of love from a higher power seems really foreign or maybe hard to connect to, and that's because there really is no true unadulterated, unconditional love in the world we live in. To be honest, I don't think that if we were to experience that sort of unconditional love, that we would even be here in this time-space reality at all. I think we would literally just ascend to heaven or whatever visualization you want to use for returning back to the kingdom of heaven or, reaching nirvana or pure enlightenment. We have so much trouble relating to a God that would love us despite everything, that would forgive us of any mistakes we've ever made, even if we don't consider them mistakes or like we don't have the remorse to look back on our mistakes and like we are just vile sinners or whatever anyone wants to call us. We are so used to conditional love, right? Even the love that is modeled by our caretakers growing up, whether that was your parent or guardian or authority figures such as your teachers at school, or basically when you were young and more helpless than you are today, when you needed emotional support, when you needed acceptance, love, forgiveness, whatever, that wasn't always available to you, right? And I am almost positive, like 99.9% sure, we have all gone through this experience where we've had to deny our true nature because some part of it would disappoint someone or make someone angry or upset the balance and the natural order of the society we grew up in. And so the concept of conditional anything is basically the domain of the ego. From a very everyday layman's point of view, we think of the ego as some sense of being prideful, or to work from the ego or to operate from the ego means that we're very self-focused, self-interested. But in the context of A Course in Miracles, I also want us to consider the ego as the part of us that is not willing to forgive. And even the term forgiveness, we think of it as forgiving is this high and mighty stance where we are taking the high road and we're the bigger person, and so we're looking down on the person who has wronged us and saying like, you were a horrible person, but I'm just gonna let it go, and like, that's okay, you do you, I'll do me, blah blah blah. So that's what we consider like forgiveness in our minds, right? Is just kind of like, we are basically releasing someone from their prison sentence of like whatever resentments or contempt that we have towards them. I go into the topic of real, true, unconditional forgiveness in another of my previous videos, so I won't bore you too much with that breakdown. But essentially, I want you to consider the ego and all its manifestations, including the whole concept of Satan, of like the arch nemesis of God, which in and of itself doesn't make sense. If a perfect God is perfect and is all powerful, why would they have an enemy that could possibly overthrow them? You know, it defies logic. But anyways, I'm not here to debate the very foundational tenets of some very big religions out there. And you are, of course, free to believe whatever you want. And you can stand by your convictions in doing so. That is just my opinion. And, you know, I actually do think that the manifestations of like Satan or the devil or just the underworld in general, I actually think that they can exist. And they do exist, but they are manifestations of something bigger. You know, when you have a cold, you have symptoms. So you get a runny nose, or like your sinuses are super congested, or you have a fever or whatever. Those are considered symptoms. The root cause of that could be like a viral or bacterial infection. So in the same way, I like to think of like these manifestations of Satan, the devil, demons, hell even, the gates of hell. Those are manifestations, but they're not the root cause. So in the same way, I would consider those the symptoms. The root cause is the ego and the concept of the ego that has entered our minds and our hearts and has infiltrated our lives and our society at large. And so here's the ego in a nutshell. According to me, and as I have learned through A Course in Miracles, ego and all its manifestations is simply a space or a reality in which forgiveness does not exist. And of course, that intensity varies. So we obviously see unforgiving people in our everyday lives all the time who hold a lot of judgment, who condemn others for their beliefs if they don't align with like that person's. The ultimate environment of unforgiveness to me is hell. That's what I consider hell on earth and in spirituality, is just a place where you can never be forgiven for your crimes or your mistakes or the tiny things that you do that you hurt others, sometimes unintentionally, or basically the crime of being who you are, which may go against many established hierarchies and like power structures in the world. To not be able to forgive yourself and move on, to me, is a characteristic of hell. Hence why we consider hell to be like this place where sinners and people who are bad, like, have a terrible nature, that's where they go to suffer for eternity, because there is not 1 ounce of forgiveness in that place. And so that is the connection between forgiveness and the unconditional love of God, is that if hell is a place with 0 forgiveness, then God is the complete opposite of that and is a place of ultimate forgiveness. I think that the forgiveness of God is wiping the slate clean like it never happened. Like there's just no record or history of what you've done or what you think is worthy of punishment, because God just doesn't operate like that. And that is the whole definition of unconditional love, is that nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop God from loving you for who you are. Okay, so when I say that the ego is conditional, I am talking about that the ego, or any person operating out of ego, or any spiritual concept that is based on the ego, always wants to bargain. It wants to make a deal. The ego is completely about tit for tat, an eye for an eye, and if you want something, you need to do something else in order to get it. And that could be like, if you want forgiveness, you need to punish yourself and you need to suffer. Or if you want success, I want you to give me your soul. I don't know, like the ego will never just say, you know what, forget it. You're good to go. You get a free pass. Don't worry about it. Like, let's just forget it and move on. That's just not how the ego works. Allow me to read you a passage from A Course in Miracles to make this sound more eloquent and clearer than what I am trying to fumble my way through. The ego, on the other hand, always demands reciprocal rights, because it is competitive rather than loving. It is always willing to strike a bargain, but it cannot understand that to be like another means that no bargains are possible. To gain, you must give, not bargain. To bargain is to limit giving, and this is not God's will. To will with God is to create like Him. God does not limit His gifts in any way. You are His gifts, and so your gifts must be like His. Your gifts to the kingdom must be like His gifts to you. Only joy increases forever, since joy and eternity are inseparable. God extends outward beyond limits and beyond time, and you who are co-creator with Him extend His kingdom forever and beyond limit. Eternity is the indelible stamp of creation. The eternal are in peace and joy forever. So now you can see the contrast between the bargaining ego and the limitless love of God, and how He has created you to be His co-creator. Being unconditional love is to give, and is to expand, and to give outwards. And so if you are in any sort of situation where, someone is offering you love or is offering you some sort of reward, whether that's success or notoriety or even just a relationship in general, but there is some sort of bargaining going on, then you know that they are operating out of the ego. So how can we overcome this in our lives and get closer to what God wants for us and what He has willed for us, which is to give love limitlessly and to feel and experience the peace and joy that is our birthright, just because we are eternal extensions and creations of our Creator. Forgive. And do it in such a way that there is no record of the wrongdoing that was done. Now, I say all this. Do you think it's easy? No, it's not. This is probably the hardest lesson one can learn, and it is definitely a journey. The way you can get to forgiveness is to love yourself, and is to forgive yourself of all the mistakes you've made, of any crimes you've committed. And I mean, I'm not talking about breaking the law here, because that is a whole other thing. Like, if you need to go through the judicial system, then maybe you should, if you've broken the criminal code. But I just mean in our heads, right? In our minds, we trap ourselves. We create a prison for ourselves on everything we've done wrong in our lives, and some things we do consider crimes, right? Like if we've hurt someone we've loved dearly, or if we've made a mistake and been abusive or toxic towards someone, knowingly or unknowingly, then we can essentially bind ourselves in that guilt and shame for the rest of our lives and in perpetuity. And so I want you to start with forgiving yourself of whatever you need to do in order to gain your freedom again, in order for you to feel that, okay, I am finally worthy of good things in life because I have paid my penance, I've done my time. And we do this to ourselves. So I want you to forgive yourself, and from there I want you to love yourself and know that you are a work in progress, but that you are a co-creator with the original OG Big Kahuna, and that you are meant to love. You are meant to spread love, and anything that is stopping you and telling you that you're not good enough or you're not worthy of being absolutely unconditionally loved, that is the ego putting barriers in place and trying to block you from remembering and understanding how truly amazing you are. So that is all I have for today. I hope this all made sense. And once again, this is a very difficult lesson to learn. So I'm not here to tell you freaking wake up tomorrow and start forgiving everyone everywhere. Work in progress. It can take a lifetime. I think it can take multiple lifetimes if you believe in that. So just hang in there, love yourself, love others, forgive as much as you possibly can, baby steps, and I will see you on the other side when we get to heaven, and I can be like, I freaking told you so. I also want to say hello and thank you to all our new subscribers. I get so excited. I'm clearly a small YouTuber, so whenever a new subscriber comes, I freaking see you. I see that number go up, and If your profile is public, I see your name and I just want to say thank you. It means a lot. I love what I do. I want to spread my message as much as I can. So thank you very much for joining this community. I always pray that someone will comment and reach out. Like literally every video, I'm like, somebody comment and tell me I am not off my rocker. So anyways, I appreciate all the engagement I get. Even if you do not like my content, I still appreciate that engagement. And I'm so grateful for you. Okay, well, clearly, yeah, it's been a long day. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye!